The first Berserker Kazan may just go down as one of the best Souls-like games ever. I'm here to say book it, stamp it, and put a little Lacrima bow on it because you do not want to miss this one. I have 3 words for my Souls-like fans out there. Combat, combat, combat. And we get to execute this combat through Kazan, who was once a great general and then all of a sudden was accused of treason. And we're trying to figure out why that happened and who made that happen. So this is a quest of revenge, and we get to taste that sweet revenge through this amazing combat, with stamina at the center of it all, because stamina is everything in this game. And I know that's nothing new for a Souls-like game, but with Kazan, stamina is refocused much more in the vein of Sekiro, Lies of P, and Nioh, where poise and perfect deflections are what really carries you and what's needed to be successful in this game. If you're familiar with the games I just mentioned, you'll be familiar with the poise system where enemies as well as yourself have a poise meter, and it becomes a battle of trying to get the enemy exhausted before it happens to you, basically. It's all about balancing your aggression towards them, but also not overexerting yourself to the point of being exhausted. We want to get the enemies exhausted, so you do that by attacking, you do that by doing perfect deflections or perfect guards as they're called in this game. Meanwhile, managing your surroundings as well as your stamina when it comes to dodging, and it just becomes this balanced dance that you have to perfect as you go. Because managing stamina and landing those perfect deflects and perfect guards is really the goal of every fight, from the small enemies to the bosses. And when you do succeed, dude, it's super satisfying. The combat also starts to get more flashy the more time you put into the game, which is awesome. And what makes that possible is the skill trees. And the cool thing about the skill trees is you can respec them anytime, which means that you can switch up your skills whenever you feel like it, which of course makes for very diverse builds and gives you the opportunity to try new things and just experiment with different weapons and different skills. Because sometimes some bosses are going to make you switch it up. They're going to have different resistances. You're going to have to put up different resistances and different skills and whatever just to take them down. And so being able to do that on the fly at any time is pretty damn awesome. And the combat itself feels overall awesome as well. It feels very fluid, it feels very responsive, and whether you use one weapon or you dabble in all of them, they each have a skill tree that you'll be able to put points into, as well as a common skill tree that has basic skills that you can use across the board no matter what weapon you're using. So as you could imagine, having these different skill trees and then being able to respec and refund them at any time will open up this gameplay and keep it feeling fluid. You never really feel stuck in your build because you can change it literally any time. And one of the coolest parts about this process is that you can augment and change your armor and gear as well. And this comes later in the game, but once you're able to do it, you'll be mixing and matching your gear along with your skills. And this brings me to my next point. There is a lot of Nioh influence in this game, and nobody's gonna tell me otherwise. From the level designs to the shortcuts to the connections between life and death for these characters, all of it just screams Nioh. And not to mention the loot. Tons and tons of loot. And this goes hand in hand with what I said about augmenting gear, crafting gear, and changing it to make it souls match with something else. That's all in this game. And it's such an important part of it because loot drops at such a steady rate. You're constantly getting gear. And a lot of the time, it's loot that is unique to the challenge that's right in front of you. For example, if you're on your way to a boss that deals fire, likely you're going to be picking up loot that is fire resistant. This game really does its best in terms of keeping you prepared for the next challenge, much in the way that Nioh did. And it doesn't stop there. There's some direct comparisons I could make, but I don't want to spoil them. I just know that Nioh fans will see what I'm talking about and will probably have a smile on their face just like I did. And I'm sure one of the main things we remember about Nioh, as well as other Souls-like games, is the difficulty and how challenging it gets. So let's talk about the challenge in First Berserker Kazan. I strongly feel that this game is very challenging, but it's more than fair. And a big reason for that is that this game is incredibly generous when it comes to skills, items, and systems in place to help gamers progress and then find success. And one of those systems is, of course, the Lacrima system. Lacrima, which means tear of spirit, is your actual Souls-like currency. This is what you're going to use to level up, to buy gear, and all that and more. And the crazy thing about it is that when you die during a boss fight, you will accumulate Lacrima from your attempt. I know, it's wild. And so, every time you fight a boss and die, you will get Lacrima and then get closer to leveling up. And the even crazier thing is the further you get in the boss fight, the more Lacrima you will receive. So those long, hard fights where you almost beat the boss, you'll get even more Lacrima than if you just died right at the beginning. So it helps you even further. And we're not even done yet. You're also going to build towards your skill points as well. So the more damage you do with your weapon, the more attacks you do on the bosses, you're going to eventually build up to more skill points. So this seriously makes you feel like your deaths feel empowering rather than defeating, because every death will get you closer to leveling up your character and your skills. Also, NPC helpers are made available during the boss fights as well, and these items can be found by defeating Revenants of Adversity, which is essentially an NPC 1v1 battle. These are found throughout your journey and they're very easy to farm. So if you want to use an NPC to help you in the boss battles, there's plenty of opportunities. Lastly, there's also an easy mode that is available as well. Yes, you heard that right. Anyone who is shy of the traditional Souls-like difficulty, you can rest assured that you'll have plenty of ways to make the game easier, including an actual easy mode. But if you do decide to play on normal, which I highly recommend, and Souls-like gamers, get your ears perked up right now, there's still going to be a ton of challenge here, trust me, because some of these enemies and bosses really gave me a serious challenge and got my adrenaline pumping, let me tell you. And speaking of adrenaline pumping, the boss fights that you encounter in Kazan will get your heart beating, believe me. I had more than a few boss encounters that had my hands shaking from adrenaline once I beat them, and that's always a plus. As for their difficulty, they range from easy, me beating them in one shot, to, okay, this took me 3 hours to beat. No joke. Farming and leveling up will of course help, and it will reduce the time of you beating your head against the wall and being stubborn, but sometimes I just wanted to test what I had and the level I was at, and whether it was easy or hard, I found that every boss was super satisfying to fight. Each of them have different unique designs as well as unique movesets and patterns to learn, and they also will return in side missions at times. And I appreciated what the devs did because even when you see them a second time, they're a little bit different, whether it comes to their resistances or how they look or the setting that they're in. Something will be different. And the purpose of these side missions in the game do really progress and help your character as well and add to the story. And the story, as we kind of briefly talked about at the beginning of this video, is pretty easy to understand and comprehend. I know Souls-like games can sometimes get the reputation of not having good stories or it's too complicated and complex. That's not happening here. It's a revenge story, and you're going to enjoy getting that revenge through all of this amazing combat, these boss fights, and everything else it has to offer. And there's a lot to offer here, you guys. I'm barely scratching the surface. Partly because I don't want to spoil things, but also because there's just so much to talk about with this game. It's so deep. There's just a lot here. And we'll get into that more in my other videos. But for now, let's just give the verdict, all right? After 40 hours of playing this game, it's a long one, okay? Be prepared. It's long, but you're going to enjoy every minute, I feel. There's a ton of pros I have, as you've heard. The only con, really, and I'm hard pressed to even find one outside of this, is the performance on PC. Now, there's been a couple patches that have come out since I started playing, and it's gotten better, but there are frame drops. Nothing that's deal breaking, but they are definitely noticeable. And that's with me playing on a 4070, all right? So if you're on PC and you want to get this game, I would make sure that it's not going to bother you too much to have a frame drop or two here and there. Like I said, it has gotten better. There has been patches. There may be more. So just keep it in the back of your mind as a potential negative that could impact you. But like I said, it's not a deal breaker. It's just there and I have to mention it. And that is it, you guys. That's the only con that I have so far. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that amazing? That should tell you a lot right there. I think at the end of the day, this game is going to go down as one of the best Souls-likes ever. Just as Lies of P did for the Souls-like genre and the Bloodborne-like genre, I feel that this game is going to do that for the Nioh-like genre. And that is exciting because it's reinvigorating and refreshing this genre, and especially at a time where I think a lot of gamers want that. I do feel that the fatigue could be setting in for some, not me included, but for some, this might be the one where they say, yes, Souls games are back, and they're back in a crazy fashion. And so I'm excited for you guys to get your hands on this game. That's my review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.